And spring is here. And just as surely as those famous flowers on JMU's beautiful campus are blooming, effortlessly, right now, and right on time, your career will bloom. You've learned so much these last few days. You are off already to a tremendous start. And with all that you've learned, I feel certain that you are not going to make the mistake that my poor JMU suite mate made in one of her first cover letters seeking a job in public relations, where she accidentally omitted the L from public. I'll let you take a moment on that. She didn't get the job, kids. But now listen, like my suite mate and me, you won't be perfect. But when it comes to creating your career, what if you can't get it wrong? You can't. Here's how I know. Number one, three reasons. Number one, you have already beaten greater odds, far greater odds than you will ever face in your career or even in this job search. You're here. And by here, I mean you're on the planet. You're not just 1 in a million, you're 1 in 100 million. That's all the sperm that tried to take that shot on goal before you were even conceived. One got through. It's you. And that's not even counting all the other obstacles that you overcame just to even be born. You're a walking miracle. Don't ever forget that. You can't get it wrong. You were quite literally born a winner. Number two, you can't get it wrong if, instead of looking for jobs, you look for problems. Your entire career starting right now. You may see some concerning headlines about the job market, but that doesn't have to apply to you. I've never applied for a job I've held in 30 years because I don't look for jobs. I look for problems. And while the job market may be tightening, the problem market is expanding. If you haven't noticed, the world has a lot of problems. And some of them are positively fascinating. We are living in one of the most fascinating times in modern history right now. We're sending regular people to space. It won't be long before the new spring break hotspot is Mars. Self-driving cars are, in some areas, such as San Francisco, quite literally right around the corner. And whether it's blockchain technologies, cryptocurrencies, the fourth industrial revolution is on our very doorsteps. So is there work to be done? Are there problems to be solved? Yes, there are. And we also have a lot of really concerning problems looming. Dr. Fauci has warned that we are entering an age of pandemics. There's a lot that's going to need to be done on the bioscience front to help mitigate against that, along with public policies and things like that, right? NASA says that 97% of the world's publishing climate scientists now acknowledge that climate change is real. And importantly, businesses are responding. So this isn't just politics now. The Financial Times recently wrote that the urgency of the issue is now shown by how quickly thought has turned into action, even with business. And if geopolitics is your thing, pick up the Worldwide Threat Assessment, published every year by the Director of National Intelligence, and you will see very real threats abound around the world. And as we've seen in recent months, even in our own country. These are big, hairy problems, and they need people just like you to help solve them. I too was a liberal arts graduate with those Cal creds, as Tracy was saying. I was a French and communications major, and you may not know it yet. I didn't when I was in your shoes, but you are uniquely qualified to help solve these problems. You see the big picture as a liberal arts major. You can connect dots effortlessly. You can do it from past, present, and future time orientations, and you're probably not even conscious of that. You can write. You have critical thinking skills. You have the people skills to bring the right people to the problem and help them work together as a team to solve the problem. And you have at least one superpower, that you probably haven't even discovered yet. I don't care how big or small the problem is. I want you to seek out those cool, wicked problems, like a pig hunting truffles in the south of France, and you will be rewarded every time. You will never be out of a job. So stop looking for a job and start looking for problems that you can help solve or that feel fun to you to help solve. And trust me, you can't get it wrong. Now, reason number 3 that you can't get it wrong is if and when you're willing to start anywhere. If a red carpet isn't rolled out for them with someone standing there with their name on a sign, there's a lot of people who won't even look there. But the most phenomenal opportunities in your career will sometimes come in very clever disguises, like starting at the bottom. Many well-known CEOs have started at the bottom, very successful people. Michael Eisner started out as a desk clerk, logging advertising times. Andrea Jung, former CEO of the cosmetics behemoth Avon, $6 billion in annual revenue. She started out as a manager of a manager in training at a department store. Mary Barra, first female CEO of GM and possibly any auto company, started out on the assembly line. I started at the bottom too. When I graduated, the economy was in a major recession. This was in 1992. Tracy and I were classmates at JMU. And the headlines were nothing but doom and gloom. And I confess, I bought into that. With 10 million people unemployed, a job I had been offered fell through. I felt devastated and afraid, really regretting that I had not just miserably grinded my way through a business major. Why again did I major in liberal arts? So as my computer science and marketing major friends got those fancy big name jobs with fat salaries and really impressive titles, I found myself temping. I wasn't just an assistant, I was an assistant to the assistant to a top executive. And there I was stapling and building binders. And I can assure you this was not what I envisioned as my first job as someone who had always been an achiever. But I chose, as I know you will choose, to be all of me, even in that first job, to relentlessly pursue excellence in any endeavor, including that humble job, as I always had, and as you do, to be the best binder builder that company had ever seen, and to be on the hunt for problems that anyone had that I could help solve, however big or small. So with the spirit of a truffle hunter, I got curious. Who read this binder? What was at stake with a binder blunder? It looks like a binder, but what if it's actually a magic key? What would it unlock? Well, it turned out it unlocked $100 million deals. It helped create billion-dollar relationships. I made it my job to read that binder, to meet the people who were so interested in that binder, to listen to what they liked and didn't like about what was in the binder. I chose to approach that position with the same level of professionalism that I would give to my dream job. I chose to approach it like a top executive. And do you think that got noticed? Yes. In fact, I was the best binder builder they had ever seen. And within a half a decade, this French and communications major became one of the youngest and first female division managers at the nation's largest employee-owned company, as Tracy mentioned in my intro, with science as its first name. It did go public and it became a Fortune 500 company. And as Tracy said, I was later named a corporate officer. Looking back, I now clearly see the gift that first job was. I learned business from the ground up. It was one of the best educations of my life after JMU. And I was in proximity daily in that job with top executives and clients that others I later came to see, including now that I have my own business, would give anything to have even a brief interaction with. You never know who's watching or noticing what you do, how you do it, and who you are. And if you understand this, you can't get this wrong. What if there's no wrong place to start? Now I can already hear the butts coming through the Zoom here. April, this is all great. I'm feeling a little inspired, but I'm not qualified for some of these problems that you mentioned. Well, let me tell you a little story. 2 weeks after the 9/11 attacks in September of 2001, I received a phone call. Be in a certain place at 7 a.m. sharp, I was told, on Friday. Don't be late. What I didn't know that I would discover at 7 a.m. on Friday at a huge U-shaped table with about 50 people in this room was that I had just been named to lead the nation's largest whole of society counterterrorism preparedness and response research for the White House under George W. Bush. And before I get back to my reaction in that moment, let me just briefly describe this. It turns out it was really, really cool. It was a massive live play scenario-driven 24-hour experiment that played out over 5 days, where everyone from the president through governors, mayors, fire, police, EMS, hundreds of hospital doctors, nurses, staff, emergency managers, organizations like the American Red Cross, thousands of people across 3 cities, simulated response to 2 simultaneous terrorist attacks. It took 2 years to plan just the exercise. It was written up in every major newspaper. It was called Exercise Top Officials because its entire focus was preparing top officials to respond to a range of catastrophic disaster threats, such as, well, a global pandemic. And that's where Dr. Fauci was our lead scientific advisor for that scenario. That research helped underpin our nation's policies in place today that guide coordinated national response to really bad things, including the National Response Policy Pandemic Strategy, which 18 years later became incredibly relevant. But I was not the original draft pick. Needless to say, 18 years ago, earlier in my career, without explanation, the nationally known PhD who was requested by name to lead that work bowed out. And he gave me one of the greatest, most terrifying and thrilling gifts of my career so far when he told the government that I would be the new lead. Now, back to me in the room 18 years ago with those 50 people, I was terrified. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe there's been some mistake here, but I've never done anything like this. I mean, I'm literally like telling him this, like what this is, there's got to be a mistake here. I'm still enjoying sheltering in place at this stage of my career under the cool shade of mentors and executives that are giving me assignments and telling me what to do. I hadn't been in charge of anything at this scale. These people were experts. These people, the entire evaluation team was PhDs, chemistry, science, biochemistry. And if they weren't PhD scientists, they were retired Navy SEAL officers and special forces people and former operatives who basically badasses who could kill you with a Post-it note and make it look like an accident. Cabinet officials from DHS, the Department of State, and the Department of Defense would be signing off on the reports we wrote that would then go to the White House. I was definitely not qualified. And as I initially panicked, certain this was going to be a career-ending disaster, this person told me, April, I've seen enough, even from afar, to know that you have what it takes. You have the raw material to succeed. You're willing to dive deep and learn fast. You have the capacity to translate across multiple languages, such as PhD researchers and Navy SEALs, across domains like infectious diseases to radiological detonation devices and public information campaigns. You're willing to trust the team because you know what you don't know, and you're going to help them get the best results. And you're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, even if it means pulling all-nighters. And I later came to see I did indeed have the raw material, and you do too. You do too. Those same leadership traits and capacities that I just mentioned, you absolutely have them too. And your unique abilities may be similar in some respect or maybe totally different in others, but know that you have them. And how much fun can you have discovering them through whatever first job and jobs you say yes to? And those raw materials are more important than anything you think you know in your success. Now, You are entering a world of experts, technologists, scientists, policymakers, and people who will have a lot more experience than you early in your career. And you may find that intimidating, but there's a seat at the table for you. It has your name on it. They need the creator, the mover, the connector. They need the glue that can hold it all together, the communicator, the translator, the person who can see where to start, who can be plugged in anywhere and begin to add value, the person who will not sink rather, but swim, the leader. You can always go back and bolt on skills, and you may choose to, right? Just like in the Matrix where they like download Kung Fu and off they go on a mission. I went back for a master's in information systems later that company paid a full ride for. You're lifelong learners. You will do that, and I encourage you to do that. But don't let that stop you. You're needed now, and you're ready now. Be willing to always know that what you don't know, and your awareness of that, is always going to be more important than anything you think you know. And rather than worry about all that you don't have, claim, own, and acknowledge all that you do have right now and put it on display every day. You may not yet be the expert, but you can choose to be reliable. You can choose to be early. You can choose to take extra care where most people will rush. You can choose to be what my mom calls a think-aheader and anticipate what's coming and help others be ready. You can write that thank you note. You're far more qualified than you think. So don't worry about that first but. But number two, this is all great, but what if I have absolutely no idea what I want to do for a job, April? To that, I would say, notice what lights you up and say yes to that. Don't try to figure out why it lights you up. Just notice it and follow it. Anytime anything does. If it feels light, go for it. That top official work that I mentioned, I was not qualified for. I think we would all agree it scared the daylights out of me. But the truth is, on some level, it did light me up. It lit me up. Deep down, there was a part of me that was secretly thrilled to be given such a huge challenge. So when you notice that, dive right in. Be fearless in that. Choose the threads that light you up, and as you do, it will all magically weave itself into a beautiful tapestry that you later look back on and call your career. You don't have to know now where it's leading. Third and final, but this is all great rah-rah, but I'm not getting any interviews, April. Or maybe I've already, maybe you feel like you've already been rejected from a couple of interviews. You know what? You may not get that interview or that job sometimes. And I call it dodging a bullet. At JMU, we talk a lot about opening doors, but even closed doors can be a contribution. What if that closed door is actually just saving you time and moving you even faster to something you truly desire? The arc of your career will be a success. You can't make a wrong turn. Keep knocking on doors, paying attention, being on the lookout for those problems that you're qualified and interested to help solve. And a Scooby-Doo door will open. And I need you to hear me clearly on something really important here. The real world is about taking risks. And college does a lot of things really well. But one thing it doesn't do is prepare you for what I call the afterlife. Your entire life, you have pursued gold stars. But as a mentor said to me when I first entered the real world, April, it's no longer about gold stars. It's about gold bars. In the real world, your job isn't to get the A. It's to create value. All those papers you wrote in college and group projects, imagine having to sell them. Imagine someone having to put a price on that. What would they pay? What did it cost you to develop it? How many hours did it take you to write that paper? Can you get the same result for less next time? Can you get a better result for at least as much or maybe a little more? How much better? How much more might someone pay? What effect did that paper have on people? What did it change in the world? These are all the kinds of things you're going to face in your first job. And in college, you don't take any personal risk to get that homework. It's given to you, probably more than you'd like. But in the real world, you're taking personal risks to get that work. You're taking a personal risk to pick up the phone and ask for that job or that interview. You may invest your own time or your own money or a company's money to win that work. So there will be disappointment sometimes in the real world, but when you face that disappointment, I want you to remember you have a choice. You can think, is this it? Is this proof that I should have picked a more marketable major? Or what's right about this that I don't see? Is this on some level something that I'm asking for, showing up in a way I don't expect? And what's the gift in this? There is a gift in it. What if life begins outside of your comfort zone? That doesn't mean go skydiving tomorrow to really start living, but it does mean get used to being uncomfortable. Welcome it rather than seeing that discomfort or that sting of disappointment as something that needs to be avoided or as a problem. What if being uncomfortable was really becoming a new way of being and that you would choose it beginning today? When you feel that sting of rejection, just realize it's a pebble on the path and say next. Don't let it stop you. Don't make it significant. And you can't go wrong. Now, humble beginnings, overcoming adversity, these are nothing more than the making of greatness. However daunting it may seem, remind yourself you've done your homework. You can trust yourself. You have your back. And you can trust in your preparation. Everything JMU and Cal has helped you to discover about yourself and cultivate in yourself. Phenomenal preparation. Stay in touch with and grow your JMU network. You have not met your last JMU friend. You are some of the luckiest people on the planet. You've already given yourselves permission to do what you love. And as the saying goes, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Use everything you've got to your advantage. Get out there, get to work, and it will all work out. And in this time of uncertainty, I know the future can seem like a big question mark. I get it. You spent a good bit of your life trying to get it right. But what if, when it comes to your career and indeed your life, you can't get it wrong? I look forward to following your journey.